You be seated. Just a second. I would appreciate, and this goes for both sides if it happens, but the defense says one of the reasons I got annoyed here, and I'm sorry about that, was it was just real hard to keep up because you gave me exhibits that not only were they not on the list, which I understand, I didn't have any place to write it down so I could keep track of it. I need to keep track of it. So if you can give me blank sheets with numbers in the right order, because you went from, I don't know, 1280, 12 something to 1800, and then I've got a piece of paper on the back that I don't know I'm going to see when it comes up. So just give me some more blank sheets with numbers. That'd be awesome.
We'll try to do that, and just as sort of a mea culpa, we're learning that there are more evidence, more exhibits that we're needing to introduce as things are coming up in court, so that rebuttal and things that we didn't anticipate. So we acknowledge that we are making this hard on Your Honor. It's not intentional.
Well, and that's why I was so annoyed with the things, because we're trying to get done and everybody's trying to go fast, and then I was slowing things down because of that. So had I had, like I asked, a Word copy of your exhibit list that wasn't going to be shared, I could have just done it on the computer.
We'll get that to Your Honor. We have a Word copy.
Yeah, okay, that'd be awesome, actually, if you could do that. The other thing, I just wanted to let the, I'm sorry I'm forgetting my name, but your assistant.
Nicole Fortin.
Nicole, thank you. There was one exhibit that was not admitted, so if we mention it, make sure that one does not get publicized when you send them off to the clerk's office for the media.
That one's 27, as I recall. 1227.
Okay, we'll mention it again, but we'll say one's not admitted. That is not one that gets emailed back to us. Okay. With that, call the jury in, please. All right, we can be seated. Your next witness.
People call Sean Boris to the stand.
All right. Up to the witness stand, please, sir. Excuse me, raise your right hand before you sit down. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? It is. Thank you. Have a seat.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
Can you introduce yourself to the jury, please?
My name is Sean Boris. I work at United Pipeline Systems.
And what is United Pipeline Systems?
United Pipeline installs a HDPE liner inside oil and gas pipelines. HDPE, it's polyethylene.
And what region does United Pipeline serve?
All around the world. The Durango office staffs crews around the United States, though.
Okay. And were you still employed in 2012?
I was.
And was Mark Redwine one of your coworkers?
Yes.
Describe the nature of your professional relationship with him.
Mark was a foreman or superintendent, depending upon a particular assignment, and I was a project manager, so I would direct the crews on specific projects, instruct them how to, what to do and what type of system they were going to install.
And to your recollection, in 2012 and 2011, did Mark Redwine work locally in the Durango region, or did he work in a broader area?
Broader area, but he could have also done a few projects in the general region, but I don't recall.
And how long might he be out on a given assignment or a given location?
It really depends on the specific job. It could be just a few days, or it could be several months.
And what areas did Mark Redwine, to the best of your recollection, what areas of the country did he work in?
I believe he did a fair amount of work in California, and then also a job in New Mexico, Silver City.
Okay. How far is Silver City from Durango?
I would guess about 4 or 5 hours.
Okay. Did you have regular contact with Mark Redwine in your work capacity?
Regular, yeah, uh-huh.
Do you recall the time period surrounding November 18th and 19th, 2012?
I vaguely recall it, yeah.
Okay. Do you recall Mark Redwine coming back into the Durango region around that time period?
I do.
What do you recall about that? Where was he working? When did he come in?
He had been working on this project in Silver City for a Freeport-McMoran project. And he actually came home a little earlier than the rest of the crew so that he could spend time with his son and spend the Thanksgiving break in Vallecito or at his home.
Okay. And did you see Mark Redwine on November 19th?
I did. Yeah.
Tell us how that came to pass.
I was in my office, and he actually came to the office, which isn't necessarily unusual. And we...
Let me stop you there. Where is the office?
In Bodo Park in Durango.
Okay. And what time of day did he come into the office?
In the morning.
Do you recall any time frame on that beyond just the morning?
I know the records, or what I had mentioned previously, was between 9 and 11, but I don't remember anything specifically.
Okay. So he comes into the office in the morning, and how did that strike you when he showed up that day?
It was both normal and odd. It's not unusual for out-of-town crew members, when they are home, to come in and fill in some missing paperwork, or to pick up pay stubs or what have you. But I do remember asking him, why is he here? Why wasn't he home with his son?
Okay. Did he have a specific appointment to come into the office that day?
I don't believe so.
Would that have been normal or unusual?
It was normal, yeah.
To have a specific appointment or just for people to show up?
It was normal for crew members to show up and turn in their DOT driver's logs or pick up pay stubs or what have you.
But would it be unusual for him to have called ahead and say, I'll be there at 9 o'clock or 9:30 to make a specific appointment?
It really depends on the particular employee. Most don't make an appointment.
Okay. And do you recall whether Mark Redwine had any specific appointment that morning?
I don't recall. I don't believe he did with me. I can't speak for others, though.
Okay. And when you saw him that morning, was there anything about his appearance that seemed unusual to you?
Yeah, I did mention that to one of my fellow colleagues that he looked particularly haggard. And I'm not an observant individual, and I did note that.
When you say haggard, can you be a little bit more detailed for us? What exactly did you observe, or what led you to believe that?
He just looked unkempt and a little tired, very tired.
Tired. Do you remember making a comment to one of the law enforcement investigators about the case?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And do you remember what you told her regarding his level of tiredness and your opinion about it?
Not specifically.
Objection, improper impeachment.
Yeah, you didn't do that, right, Mr. Champagne? But it's out there, and he doesn't remember, so I guess you're where you need to be.
Right, Judge. Yeah, I was refreshing his recollection.
Yeah, but you can't refresh his recollection until he doesn't.
Well, thank you, Judge.
All right.
Do you remember the specific comment that you made?
That he looked haggard.
Okay. Do you remember other comments that you made?
In regards to his appearance specifically?
Yes.
Nothing more than that.
If I may approach with supplement 556, page 708, 709.
Please do.
I'm going to ask that you read this paragraph here, and when you're finished, let me know.
Okay. Boris said he knew
No,
Mark.
no, sorry.
Out loud, just yourself.
Read to yourself.
Oh.
I apologize. that refresh your recollection?
It does, yes.
And what did you tell investigators all the way there?
That he looked terrible and had been on an all-night bender.
Do you remember that as you sit here today? Do you remember his appearance and all that?
Objection, ask and answer, and that's what we just said.
Well,
Why did this?
I hope that's why he testified that way. Okay. I think Mr. Moran's correct.
Thank you, Judge. I'll always get a different way. That's fine.
Well, I don't know. You may not be able to. We'll see.
Why did this stick out to you? Why did this seem unusual?
I found it to be very odd. In dealing with Mark in the past, I know what he normally looked like, and he looked more out of sorts, so it did strike me as unusual.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Moran?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
I know it's been a while, so I can refresh your recollection with respect to dates and the like if necessary. But do you recall speaking with the Federal Bureau of Investigations on November 26, 2012?
Yes.
And you'd agree that on the day you spoke with them, that was before the Dr. Phil show and vigils and news stories about this case?
Yes.
And that was before we all knew that Dylan was deceased?
Yes.
When you spoke with the FBI on November 26, 2012, you told them about a brief conversation you had with Mr. Redwine on November the 19th, 2012. I know I'm throwing around dates there. Let me know if that's confusing.
Yes.
So on the 26th, you described to the FBI what had happened on the 19th, right? And there were 2 FBI agents, right?
I believe so.
And again, I can refresh your recollection. It's a long time ago. It makes sense to me that these things are forgotten. Would it refresh your recollection to look at the FBI report?
Objection, Judge. He did not testify. He didn't remember.
You know what? He's going to get there anyway. Mr. Moran, if you want to let him look at it, it's fine.
Sir, I'm sorry if I misheard you. Do you remember how many FBI agents you spoke with?
Not specifically. I know there was more than one, or there was one at least.
May I approach?
There were 2 FBI agents.
Agent Margaret or Peggy Russin, is that right?
I didn't look at the name, but yes.
Okay. And would you disagree with me if I said Agent Joseph Finaro?
I would not disagree.
Okay. And when you spoke with those 2 individuals, it was just a few days, 7 days. What was it? 7 days after you'd seen Mr. Redwine at the office, correct?
Yes.
So things were more fresh in your memory than they would be today, would you agree?
Yes.
And those FBI agents were taking notes. Did you observe them doing that?
Yes.
And it's fair to say that these federal agents were taking you seriously. Is that right?
I would assume so.
And they weren't rushing you?
No, I don't believe so.
They were not interrupting you?
No, I don't believe so.
And not checking their watch or in any other way indicating that they didn't want to be there, taking account of what you said?
I believe they were taking it seriously.
And did you feel like they were being thorough?
I don't recall. I really don't.
Any reason to believe that they would not have recorded what you were saying accurately, giving that impression?
I don't know if they were taking notes word for word for what I was saying.
Okay. But definitely noting things that you were saying.
Yeah.
And is your testimony today that you mentioned to other coworkers how haggard you thought Mr. Redwine looked?
Yes.
But you did not mention that to the Federal Bureau of Investigation special agents, did you?
I believe I did. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was noted.
I see. And do you recall saying to the FBI that you did not note anything out of the ordinary about Redwine?
I don't recall saying that.
Would it refresh your recollection to take a look at the report these two agents put their name on?
Yeah, I can take a look at that.
Well, would it help you remember or not, or do you know?
I do think I mentioned that to them.
So you don't think that this would help you remember that you did not note
You can
anything?
follow that up with the FBI agents.
Understood.
Okay, that'd be the right way to do it.
I'm just seeking to clarify, since we have two different answers. Do you not remember saying it, or you're remembering the opposite, that you would not have said that?
I think I would have said something.
So that this is clear for impeachment purposes, or it seems like Your Honor is probably going to recall this line of inquiry.
Oh, we hope, don't we?
Sir, this
You'll
is,
be allowed to ask that to the FBI people.
thank you.
Whoever gets the question.
Do you remember what Mr. Redwine was wearing?
No.
Were you able to tell if he'd showered?
I don't.
You'd
I probably didn't look at him that closely.
Based on your assessment that he looked haggard and like he'd been on a bender, seems like that would have stood out to you, that he was haggard but showered, or do you just not know?
I think what I remember is like very droopy eyelids and like a scruffy face and that sort of type of haggard. I don't know if it necessitated taking a shower.
Okay, so no shower, yes shower. What do you think?
No shower, I would guess. I don't know.
So did you observe any blood on his hands,
No.
clothes?
No.
Did you observe any blood on his shoes or hair?
No.
And nothing, based on your assessment that he was haggard looking, to suggest that he had washed evidence of a homicide off of him previous to his...
He can't answer that question, Mr.
Switching gears here a little bit, sir. Do you remember that you were contacted even earlier than the 26th by a La Plata County Sheriff's Officer by the name of Investigator Gabbard?
I don't recall that.
Would it refresh your recollection to take a look at his report?
Sure.
May I approach?
Yes.
Sorry, what was that? Okay. Yes. I still don't remember speaking to him.
You do not recall speaking with Investigator Gabbard on November the 21st, 2012?
No, I don't.
Do you remember on March 18th, 2020, meeting with Mr. Champagne and his investigator?
No.
Would it refresh your recollection to take a look at a report written about that meeting?
This was March 2020?
March 18th, 2020, yes, sir, at approximately 1:30 p.m. at 1060 East 2nd Avenue, Durango, Colorado, 81301.
What was the,
Karen Neighbor was there.
what was the address again?
1060 East 2nd Avenue, in fact, this building.
I don't recall that.
Do you remember any meeting with Mr. Champagne, who was just asking you questions?
I don't.
Okay. Would it refresh your recollection to take a look at an investigative summary written about that day?
Sure. No, this was.
May I approach? Yes.
Okay.
May I approach?
Yes.
Does this refresh your recollection about a meeting you had in the building?
It does. The first paragraph states that it was a conference call.
Beg your pardon, my bad. But you remember on that occasion having a conversation with Mr. Champagne?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember on that occasion that there was some discussion about the conversation you had with Deputy Gabbard?
Yes.
And you said that you had reviewed Deputy Gabbard's supplement and that there was a statement in that supplement that you believed to be inaccurate.
Yes.
So in recalling that there was something inaccurate about Investigator Gabbard's report, you do in fact recall that you had a conversation with Investigator Gabbard, right?
Based on that piece of paper, yes.
And based on the fact that it occurred, is that accurate, sir? That conversation with Investigator Gabbard did take place, and you confirmed it for Mr. Champagne?
Yes.
And that conversation happened on November 21st, 2012, right?
Yes.
That's 2 days after the news broke that Dylan Redwine was missing and that his father was at the office, right?
Yes.
Do you recall that on that occasion when you spoke with Investigator Gabbard that he was also respectful and serious?
Yes.
And he wanted to speak with you about having seen Mr. Redwine on November the 19th, 2012, right?
Yes.
And you were honest with Investigator Gabbard, right?
Absolutely. No.
You told Investigator Gabbard that you'd only seen Mr. Redwine briefly, correct?
Briefly is vague. It wasn't for an extended period of time, but yes.
Okay. You also told Investigator Gabbard on November 21st, 2012, that you did not speak with Mark Redwine on the 19th, correct?
That's inaccurate. I definitely spoke to Mark.
Okay. So that the elements are all present here. This is on November the 21st, 2012, that you spoke with Gabbard, correct?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
It was on November the 21st, 2012, that you spoke with Investigator Gabbard.
Yes.
And it was about seeing Mark Redwine on November 19th, 2012, right?
Yes.
And it was at your place of employment, correct?
Correct.
Also on that occasion, you made no mention to Investigator Gabbard that you remarked to other colleagues that Mr. Redwine looked tired. Do you remember that you did not say anything of the like to him?
No, I don't recall not saying that.
I want to switch gears here and move to a discussion that you had with investigators on May the 10th, 2013. Would you agree that that's about 6 months after the conversation with Investigator Gabbard?
Yes.
And on that occasion, do you remember saying that you did in fact speak with Mr. Redwine?
Yes, I would have said that.
And you said what happened was a standard conversation about work-related things, right?
Correct.
And on that occasion, you were not able to recall which colleagues you'd spoken with about how rough Mr. Redwine looked. Is that right?
Correct.
And this would have been after the television program with Dr. Phil airing, correct?
I don't know when that aired. I didn't watch it.
When you spoke with, then switching gears again, you spoke with an investigator, Goldbright, and a Federal Bureau of Investigation special agent, again in September 2013, right?
I don't recall.
Refresh your recollection, take a look, sir.
Please.
I've got a report here if I might approach.
Yes.
Discovery page 708. Sir, if I may, does that refresh your recollection about having met with investigators again in September 2013?
Yeah, I don't see where this is dated.
Top left, first full sentence.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
So you do recall that you spoke again with law enforcement in September of 2013?
Yes.
And that was the day that you mentioned that it looked like Mr. Redwine had been on an all-night bender. Is that right?
Yes.
And by bender, what that means is drinking for many hours. Is that right?
Yeah. Hadn't slept.
And an all-night bender suggests drinking for many hours and staying up all night, right?
I need a yes or a no, please.
Yes.
In the United Pipeline vehicle that Mr. Redwine would have been using for work, there was a GPS tracker, right? So you know where the vehicles were?
Yes.
I think that's all my questions, sir. Thank you.
Anything, Mr. Champagne?
Yes, thank you, Judge. Mr. Boris, sounds like you actually had several contacts with law enforcement throughout this case.
Yes.
Going back to just a couple of days after the 19th, you spoke with Investigator Gabbard, the 21st of 2012.
Yes.
Of November, excuse me. And you spoke with him about having seen Mr. Redwine on the morning of the 19th, correct?
Yes.
And it's your recollection that you told him that you spoke to Mark Redwine.
Yes.
Objection leading.
Please stop leading, Mr.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Is it your recollection that you told Investigator Gabbard that you spoke with Mark Redwine?
Yes, I would have said that.
Okay. And in fact, on the 26th of November, 2012, you spoke to 2 FBI agents.
Yes.
Is it your recollection that you told them that Mr. Redwine looked tired and pale?
I don't know if I would have said pale. I probably would have said haggard, but along those lines.
And do you recall discussing with them some of the conversation that you had with Mark Redwine?
Yes.
Okay. On May 10th, 2013, 6 months later, you spoke to another investigator from the sheriff's office this time.
Mm-hmm.
And sir, I don't mean to scold you, but you can't take a look at that without me bringing it to your attention. And that was Investigator Patterson. I don't know if you remember that name. It's probably all the same.
It is.
Okay. And do you recall telling him that Mark Redwine looked particularly bad on the morning of the 19th of November, 2012?
Your Honor, if I may, we're engaged in leading questions.
Yes, you are.
Do you recall what else you may have said to Investigator Patterson?
That he looked worse than normal.
Is that, to your recollection, consistent with what you told Investigator Goldbright in September of 2013?
Yes.
And do you recall a telephone interview that you had with me and my investigator just here in 2020?
Yes.
And is that, to your recollection, consistent with what you told us in that conversation?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Anything from the jury? Can this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. You're free to go.
Thanks.
Your next witness?
Thank you, Your Honor. People call Peggy Russin.
Come on up to the witness stand, please. Raise your right hand before you sit down. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. Have a seat.
You're welcome. Good afternoon, Ms. Russon.
Yes,
Could you please start by introducing yourself to the jury by your full name?
my name is Margaret Russin,
And could you please spell your last name for the court reporter?
Russin.
And Ms. Russon, where are you currently employed?
I'm retired.
And where is your previous employment?
I was a special agent with the FBI,
For how long?
20 years.
And did you have previous law enforcement experience prior to that?
No.
What's your educational background before becoming an agent at the FBI?
I have a MBA from the University of Arizona, and I worked for Safeway grocery stores.
Okay. And then in the 20 years at the FBI, can you just kind of talk the jury through what kind of assignments you held and what kind of role you had there?
I pretty much investigated any federal violations of law, violent crimes like collar crimes, public corruption, bank robberies, some terrorism, some criminal counterintelligence, not too much of that. I did most of the gamut in my career.
And where did you work out of?
The Albuquerque division and here the Denver division in Durango.
And then when were you at Albuquerque, when were you at Denver, and when were you at the Durango division?
In Albuquerque, I was there from 1996 to 2007, and then got transferred here in 2007 to 2016.
And then what kind of training goes into becoming a FBI agent internally once that's what you're going to pursue?
My initial training was at Quantico. It's a 4-month program, although it's extended nowadays. And throughout my career, I've done different trainings for evidence and interviewing and whatever I was interested in at the time.
What kind of things do you learn at Quantico in that initial training that you get before you become an agent?
The basics of federal law, search and seizure, and what our parameters are to investigate, firearms, how to arrest people, that kind of thing.
Okay. And then as you go through trainings while you're an agent, how frequently do you attend trainings as an agent?
It depends. You can put in for as much as you want. I probably went to a couple of trainings a year. We also had mandatory legal training a few times a year within the division.
Is part of the training you receive related to executing search warrants?
Yes.
And is that some of the legal training you talked about?
Part of that for writing them, but I was also the leader of our evidence response team in Albuquerque and did a lot of evidence recovery training.
Can you talk about what is the evidence response team?
It's the FBI's version of CSI. So it go into various crime scenes, whether they're violent crimes or white-collar crimes, and document the scene and recover evidence.
Now, I know most people know the FBI is a federal agency. Does that mean that things are similar regardless of where you're stationed in terms of protocols and policies?
Yes.
So are there evidence response teams in Albuquerque and then similarly in Durango area?
We didn't have a team in the Durango area. It would have had to have come out of Denver to come assist us.
Is it typically composed of people in the major metro areas, things like that?
Yeah, or larger satellite offices, yes.
Okay. And then the evidence response team, what type of training did you have going into that before you became in charge of it in Albuquerque?
In Albuquerque, I had an initial 2-week evidence training, and then along the way, I've done blood spatter training, interview training, not bullet analysis, but trajectory analysis and these kind of things.
Okay. Are you also trained on how to take photographs of a crime scene, for example?
Generally, yes.
And trained on evidence collection?
Yes.
And then do you receive some training as a CSI as well as a crime scene investigator?
As a CSI?
Maybe I'm using a term that's more for TV, but processing a crime scene.
Yes.
Do you receive training there?
Yes.
Okay. Do you call it crime scene investigator in the FBI?
No, it's just evidence response team.
Okay. And then there are people assigned to different roles within an evidence response team?
Yes.
And have you worked in various roles within the evidence response team itself, too?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of roles have you had there?
Photographer, sketcher, evidence collector, log generator. Especially here in Durango, there was only 2 of us, so I kind of would do everything on a crime scene.
Okay. I'm going to turn your attention back to November of 2012. Were you working as an FBI agent in the Durango area around that time?
Yes.
Were you made aware of a missing child named Dylan Redwine?
Yes.
So how were you made aware of this?
We knew the reports of the missing child. Initially, we were told it was a runaway, probably a runaway. Our office in Colorado Springs asked us to reach out to the sheriff's department and see if we could assist in any way.
When you received information that it was possibly or probably a runaway, when was that?
My partner, Joe Finaro, was the one in contact with the sheriff's department. I'm going to say that was probably the 20th or the 21st.
So it was in those very first days where no one could locate Dylan Redwine?
Correct.
At that point in the case, was a lot of the information based on what the father had said?
Yeah, that's the only information I know of.
Was he the last person seen with Dylan Redwine as far as everyone knew at that point in time?
Yes.
Objection, speculation, hearsay, and
I'm going to go for it. It's fine. Go ahead.
The information that you had was child last seen with father,
Yes.
child's missing, child may have run away.
Yes.
And then what was your assignment when you got involved in the case?
The Sheriff's Department asked us to initially interview Mr. Redwine's employer. Because it was Thanksgiving, they weren't around until the following week of Monday.
Okay. So you were assigned, generally speaking, to interviews?
Yes.
Did you interview his employer ultimately, some coworkers, things like that?
Yes.
Were you also assigned to neighborhood canvassing in the case?
Yeah, eventually, that first weekend, a squad from Denver and Colorado Springs came down to assist in the investigation. And part of that was the neighborhood canvass, which was one of my first assignments.
Does it sound accurate to you that around November 27th of 2012, you were doing some of the neighborhood canvassing yourself?
It sounds about right.
And where were you canvassing?
All along the main road to Mr. Redwine's house. So every house along there was being canvassed.
When you say the main road, what road are you referring to?
It's the one off of 501.
If it's helpful, I'll publish People's 22. And this is a previously admitted exhibit that's going to be behind you. And so is that longer road that leads up to Vallecito and goes by the west side of Vallecito, is that 501?
Yes, I believe so.
And then is the top road to the left or the west, is that County Road 500?
Yes.
And then I'm going to move to People's 23. Just a closer up of that County Road 500 that's to the northwest of the map.
Yeah, that would be the road that County Road 500 is what we were trying to canvass.
Okay. What's that road like in the November month of the year?
It was clear, it hadn't snowed, not that I recall. There weren't a lot of occupied buildings because it's off-season. So a lot of the canvass was pretty quick.
Is it fair to say it's kind of deserted up there that time of year?
Yes.
How about the road itself? Where does it lead?
To a campground, a dead end.
Any through traffic up in that area?
No. There's nowhere to go through to.
Okay. So as you were doing your neighborhood canvassing, were you thinking about all possible scenarios or just the runaway scenario?
Well, we were just trying to find anybody who had seen Dylan after his father reported him.
Okay. Have you had cases before with abductions, for example?
Not that I've directly been involved in, but certainly colleagues have.
What about that area, if anything, lended itself to any of the possible theories regarding what could have happened to Dylan Redwine?
Well, it's fairly isolated. It would be, I think, unusual for somebody to be looking for someone to abduct in that area. It's not well populated. It's a
Objection, Your Honor, if I may. This is profiling testimony that requires expert certification and endorsement. And I think that the state of the law is that it's still inadmissible even if endorsed. This is profiling information and we object.
Your Honor, she's not referring to any particular person to profile them. She's describing the area and the things that she was observing as she was making decisions in the investigation.
I don't see a problem with it. I mean, I don't know where it's going to go, but I don't see a problem with it yet. So overruled.
So, Ms. Russin, you were talking about some of the factors that you were considering and whether it was potentially a abduction situation, and you were mentioning that it's pretty desolate, for example. Okay, what other things struck you?
You know, we were looking to see if it's possible that he would have fallen down behind a house since there were so many abandoned houses. We looked at all the properties that we could get access to. It was a pretty long road from Mr. Redwine's house to anything of note, like the lake or things like that. So it would be a very long walk for somebody that if Dylan were walking that way, we hope that he would have been spotted by somebody.
Okay. And then in terms of the canvassing that you did, were you able to locate anyone as you were canvassing that had seen Dylan Redwine after that night of November 18th, 2012?
No.
So I've showed you these maps, but I want to move on to the house itself. So we talked about November 27th, I believe, was some of the canvassing efforts that you did. And then By November 28th, did things shift gears a little bit?
Yes.
Was there discussions about a search warrant and preparation for that on November 29th of 2012?
Yes.
Were you involved in that process?
Tangentially.
Okay. What was your role going to be in the process of the search warrant that was going to be executed there?
I was going to assist the evidence response team in looking for evidence at the house.
So unlike in Albuquerque, you were, is it fair to say you had a role within the ERT as opposed to running the ERT at this location?
Correct.
What was your assignment within the evidence response team?
To look for evidence within the house.
So how does that look? What does that process look like?
The first thing that usually happens is the photographers come in and document the scene as it is. There's also a person assigned to sketch and diagram the scene, so we have a kind of visual idea of what things look like. After they're completed, then we can come in and start searching and moving things around.
Okay. So the person who's taking photographs initially and the person who's sketching, are they documenting the house as it appears when you arrive?
Yes.
And taking one step back, the search warrant, was that executed in the morning of November 29th of 2012?
Yes.
Do you recall what agencies and what person, generally speaking, how many people were involved in that process?
The search itself, there was maybe a team of 7 or 8. There were a couple of additional Sheriff's Department employees, officers to do scene security. Colorado Bureau of Investigations were there also, lending technical assistance and helping search. FBI, I believe that was it.
So a joint investigation between CBI, FBI, and the local Sheriff's Office?
Yes, officially led by the Sheriff's Department.
Okay. And the Sheriff's Department, when you have an investigation like this, are you the primary investigating agency or are you assisting the local law enforcement?
In this case, we were assisting local law enforcement. We're the primary investigating agency if we're investigating a violation of federal law. We didn't have any clear indication of that at that time. And part of our mandate is to provide technical assistance to local law enforcement.
And when you're working with local law enforcement as an assist, who collects the evidence at the end of that processing?
Who's ever in charge, like for instance, our ERT was in charge of that scene. So they processed the evidence, collected it, and then turned it over to one of the investigating detectives.
The La Plata County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
And then they will take that evidence and book it in, basically?
Yes.
Now, on this particular, well, let me talk about ERT a little bit more. So does ERT document all the work that's done on any potential crime scene?
Yes.
How is that documented?
At that time, it was documented in a program called Casebook.
And is that what's referred to as an FBI casebook?
Yes.
And what does the FBI casebook document in terms of events that occur within the search?
It documents when events happen, like when we served the search warrant, when they entered the house, who was on scene, when people left, when photographing started, when sketching started, when actual evidence recovery started.
And then does that FBI casebook also have documentation through the photographs that are taken while the search warrant's being executed?
Yes.
Does that casebook also document evidence that's collected?
Yes.
And then when all of that's completed, that's when you exit the scene and evidence is turned over to the local agency?
Yes, after exit photographs.
Now, in this particular case, you were talking about what your role is going to be. Let's talk about what you actually did that day. So you talked about someone going through and doing initial photographs, right?
Right.
Do you participate in that process?
No. There's one person keeping a log, one person photographing.
And when all that's completed, when do you get involved?
When it's completed, when the photographs and the diagrams are completed. But as they finish a section, we can move into that section.
And then what do you do when you move into each section?
Start to look for items that have been listed in the warrant or any evidence indicating struggle or, that something else happened in the house.
And when you're looking for evidence, are you looking for trace evidence or are you looking for physical evidence?
Both. Trace evidence in terms of microscopic blood and stuff was handled by somebody else, but if there were an area that I saw that looked like it could potentially have blood or some other trace evidence, I could certainly note it for those people.
So in this particular case, was Joe Clayton from CBI assigned to collect that biological or trace type evidence?
Yes.
And then, of course, if you saw something visible, you'd let him know. But was your assignment different in terms of what you were primarily collecting?
Yes, I was primarily looking for, clothing or items that Dylan brought with him.
Did you, in fact, do a walkthrough of the house on November 29th of 2012?
Yes.
And am I accurate in saying that was about 10 days after Dylan had disappeared?
Yes.
At this time, Your Honor, I'm going to ask to approach the witness with what have been marked, and I'll be very deliberate with these numbers because some have already been admitted.
All right.
I'm going to approach with People's Exhibits 52 through 68, and then 70, and then 74, 76, 77, and then 81 through 121.
Okay.
So, Ms. Russin, I've handed you what have been marked People's Exhibits 52 through 68, 70, 74, 76, 77, and then 81 through 121. Can you just glance over those for me and make sure that they're images that you've seen before?
Yes.
Have you seen all of those photos?
Yes.
Now, there are roughly, is it fair to say, nearly 200 photos in the FBI casebook?
Yes.
And I've handed you what's probably, by my math, closer to 60 or 65 of those photographs. Do those fairly and accurately depict the inside of the residence at 2343 County Road 500 when you did the search warrant?
Yes.
And also, would it assist the jury in just kind of walking them through and giving them a visual of what the house looked like?
So it's a log cabin style house. The front,
Okay. He's trying to admit the exhibit. So
Let me stop you. No, I appreciate that, but in terms of just showing the jury what you saw that day, would these be helpful exhibits in accurately portraying the walkthrough that you did?
Yes.
Can you use these to take them on a walkthrough through that home?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd move to admit People's Exhibit 52 through 68, 70, 74, 76, 77, and 81 through 121.
Mr. Bordier.
Yes.
Ms. Russin, are you able to tell which of, well, let me start here. It was a special agent with the last name Parsons who took these photographs, right?
He wasn't a special agent, no.
But he works for the FBI.
He did, yes.
Okay. And he's the individual who had the camera and was responsible for taking photographs on November 29th, 2012.
Yes.
When an FBI photographer, and I'm basing this on my assumption because of training you got at Quantico and otherwise as continuing training, that you had some exposure to what's supposed to happen with respect to photography at a place where a search warrant's being executed. Is that fair?
I'm not sure what question you're asking.
Do you have some training with respect to what is supposed to happen with photography when a search warrant's being executed?
Yes.
So one of the things that you are supposed to do is take entrance photographs, is that right?
Yes,
And then upon departure from a citizen's house where a search warrant's being executed, you take departure photographs, right?
yes,
And some part of that theory is that the first photographs, the entrance photographs, document what it looked like before anything was really done, before things were moved. We want it to look like the citizen keeps it. Is that right?
yes,
And then the exit photographs are to, in part, document how it looked after searchers had done their work. It keeps track of things that have been removed, partly. Is that fair?
And I'm going to interrupt you because this appears to be going beyond voir dire. Sounds like cross-examination to me. Does this have to do anything with admissibility?
Yes.
Could you tell me what?
I'm not certain Ms. Russin will know the difference because she didn't take these photographs as to which ones are entrance, which ones are exit, and which ones are photographs that demonstrate what the house looked like after searchers had moved in and around the house and disturbed things in Mr. Redwine's house. So without being able to say this set is entrance, this set is exit, it's not a fair and accurate representation of the house, at least as Mr. Redwine left it. It may be a fair and accurate representation of how it looked when they were exiting, but without being able to distinguish entrance and exit, it would leave a misleading impression on the jury because the house didn't look the way it will appear in exit photographs when law enforcement first came in the house. So I'm seeking to establish with this witness that she's not able to tell which ones are entrance and exit, unless she can, and then our objection is obviated.
Well, not sure that matters, but can you tell whether or not these were entrance or exit photographs or not?
yes, I've looked at these photographs probably 100 times.
And which are they?
They're both,
Okay.
and evidence photos.
So then just one more follow-up with respect to that. Which ones are the exit photographs?
Well, I can go through each individual one and determine which ones are entrance and exits, and most likely most of them are entrance ones so that you can see. But when I looked through them just now, he asked me to look to see if he recognized them, not to identify which ones were entrance or exit ones.
Anything else, Mr. Moran?
I would ask that the witness identify which ones are exit photographs. I think that's important to show that this is after the house has been manipulated by searchers.
I think that's something that can be done during direct and/or cross. It doesn't go to admissibility. These exhibits will be admitted unless there's another objection.
Just so that my record complete, the objection is that these are not a fair and accurate representation of how it looked upon entry.
That wasn't why they're being admitted, though, was it? So your objection's overruled. So 52 through 68, 70, 74, 76, 77, and 81 through 121 are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Ms. Russin, I just want to talk about entry and evidence and exit photographs for 1 second, just to make sure that we're clear with the jury.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the FBI casebook, does it actually know whether it's an entry photo or an exit photo?
It does.
And are there also photos called evidence photos?
Yes.
And in the FBI casebook, does that also have thumbnails for these photographs so that you know which one it's referring to, as it says entry, evidence, or exit photo?
Yes.
Now, with your familiarity, are the majority of what I showed you entry photos?
I'm going to say yes without looking at them.
Sure, sure.
Because that would be most.
And then, in addition to that, the evidence photos, what do those capture?
Very particular items that we identified and took close-ups.
And then, for example, were you present when the house was processed with luminol?
No.
Okay. Did you see, let me give you a different example. Did you see the house after it was processed with luminol?
Yes.
Those wouldn't be entry photos, correct?
No.
Those would be exit photos?
Yes.
Why?
It's very obvious that luminol had been used. It produces a white coating over the furniture.
And so that's the way that the home looks when you leave?
Yes.
And then also, let's use an example for an evidence photo. Did you collect, let's say, did you collect a football in this case?
Yes.
That football, when that's documented with a photograph, is one of those an evidence photo because it's being taken.
Yes.
So as we go through, if there's any confusion as to entry or exit photos, defense counsel has it, I have it, we all have this FBI casebook, right? And would that refresh your memory if you have any problems with whether one's an entry or exit?
That would refresh my memory, but most likely the items would be missing from the pictures, and that's an easy way to identify it also.
Do you feel fairly confident we can do a walkthrough with the jury of how the home appeared that day?
Yes.
All right, let's get started then. Judge, may I start publishing exhibits?
Yes.
I'm going to start actually with previously admitted People's Exhibit 24. So, Ms. Russin, I'm just going to ask you to explain to the jury what each of these photos is and take them through a walkthrough. What is People's Exhibit 24?
It's the front of Mr. Redwine's house.
Okay. People's Exhibit 52. What are we looking at People's Exhibit 52?
The front door?
And that's coming up around the porch, basically?
Yes.
Is there a couple of stairs there or something that goes up to the porch and then it goes into the home?
Yeah, just negligible, yeah.
Okay. 53, please. Which angle at the house is this?
That's the north side of the house?
It's the part that faces up towards the dead end? That would be north?
Yes.
Yeah. And so is this essentially a walk around of the house so that people can see the property?
Yes.
People's 54. What's People's 54?
The back side of the house.
And then if you look to the right of the house, what is that sort of structure or natural structure right there?
It's a hill. There's kind of a cliff or a hill behind the house.
Is that right behind the home to the west? It goes straight up basically and sort of cliffs?
Yes.
Next photo is People's 55. This now explain to the jury, please.
This is the back side of the house from the south side.
And so you'd be standing south looking north.
Yes.
People's 56.
That's the south side. That door leads to the master bedroom.
And is that, from your knowledge of the case, that leads up to the defendant's bedroom?
Yes.
And then that staircase has sort of a, when you walk to the top of it, that's an outdoor straight into the room kind of door?
Yes.
People's 57.
A shed that was on the property,
People's 58.
inside the shed.
Anything of evidentiary value located inside the shed?
No.
And around the perimeter of the home, anything of evidentiary value in those photographs we already saw?
No.
People's 59.
A trailer that was on the property.
Does this belong to the defendant?
Yes.
And this is part of his property as well?
Yes.
And then if you look behind it, does that give context as to where the trailer is in relation to the home?
Yes, you can see the house in the background.
People's 60, please.
Looking into the trailer.
People's 61.
Inside the trailer.
People's 62.
Also inside the trailer.
Anything of evidentiary value located in the trailer?
No.
People's 63.
Inside the trailer.
People's 64.
Septic tank.
And is this within the property of the resident?
Yes.
And do you recall where in relation to the house it is, generally speaking?
I believe on the south side.
And People's 65. So, and actually, back to 64, anything of evidentiary value located with relation to this?
No.
Just documenting that it's there?
They emptied it and searched it.
Okay, nothing in there.
Nothing in there.
People's 65.
The entry to the house.
So to reorient the jury too, is this that front door from the porch entryway into the home?
Yes.
People's 66.
This is the kitchen that's to the left of the front door?
So if you walk in the door and you look left, this is what you would see?
Yes.
People's 67.
Another shot of the kitchen and the wood-burning fireplace?
Panning to the right?
Yes.
People's 68.
This is if you're looking straight in through the front door. The table was right there and the living room is to the right.
People's 60, or People's 70. Okay. Is this an item, is this more of an evidence photo and not an entry photo?
It's an evidence photo, but it was at the very end of the search, so it had been moved from a different location within the house.
Just explain that to the jury, please.
We always do a final walkthrough through the house to make sure that we didn't miss anything. In this case, a couple of investigators noted the boarding pass in Mr. Redwine's master bathroom and brought it downstairs to be photographed.
Okay. And that boarding pass, was that consistent with the information you had about Dylan Redwine's flight?
Yes.
Then I'm going to move to People's Exhibit, previously admitted 71. Do you recognize, so if you've walked in the home and you look left to the kitchen and then you pan around to the right, what is 71?
It's the living room as we saw it when we entered.
And besides the boarding pass, so far are these entry photographs?
Yes.
And then again, People's 72.
Another entry photo of the living room.
And then is this panning all the way back, what we could call full circle, to where that front door is going to be?
Yes.
People's 74, please. Additional photograph of the living room?
Yes.
76, please. It's a different angle into that living room?
Yes.
You yourself stood inside of this living room during the search warrant?
Yes.
People's 77.
It's the corner of the coffee table.
Okay. To your knowledge, was a swab taken from that area?
Yes.
Is this how it appeared, though, to the naked eye?
Yes.
People's Exhibit 81.
This is just a little kind of pass-through hallway to get to the back stairway.
So when you took the jury through the photographs into the home, look left to the kitchen, hand around to the right to the living room. If we straighten back out, coming through the front door, are we now walking straight towards the back?
Yes, you can see part of the kitchen table in the foreground.
Okay. And then People's Exhibit 82, please.
Go ahead.
What is that?
It's an iPod that was there. It's, again, part of an evidence photo versus an entry photo.
Is that one of Mark Redwine's iPods?
Yes.
But does that have a charger for an iPod circa 2012 in the photograph?
Yes.
People's 83. Okay, so I think in 81 we were looking straight down the hallway, and what are we doing now?
We're looking to the left. This is the left side of the hallway. The iPod is across from this on a sideboard.
People's 84.
This is the downstairs bathroom.
Is that to the viewer's right as they walk into the home towards the back?
So yes, it's beyond the living room and to the right of the hallway.
People's 85, please.
This is a downstairs bedroom.
Also, where is this in relation if you're walking straight into the home?
It's behind the living room.
People's 86.
Another picture of that bedroom.
Anything of evidentiary value found in here?
No.
People's 87. Panning around that room?
Yes.
People's 88.
The picture of the Wi-Fi. We always take pictures of electronics. And
This is basically just documenting the defendant has Wi-Fi and this is the router?
yes.
89.
The beginning of the stairs, which is at the very back of the house.
And when you go to the back of the house, so if you walk through the front door towards the back of the house, which way do you turn for the staircase?
It's directly in front of you.
Okay. People's 90.
And then it takes a left turn jog to the second floor.
Now, there's a piece of paper on the wall. What is that piece of paper?
We mark and identify each room by a letter so that when you say you collected something, instead of having to write living room, you just write room B, and it's documented in the sketch of the place.
And in the FBI casebook as well?
Yes.
And so, for example, is the living room room B in
Yes.
this case? And 91, please.
That's the landing area at the top of the stairs. Dylan's bedroom is what you see in the back, and the picture is being taken from essentially the master bedroom area.
Okay. 92.
The closet on that landing.
93.
Dylan's bedroom.
94.
Another picture from Dylan's bedroom.
So Dylan had his own bed and sleeping area in the home.
Yes.
People's 95.
Another part of the bedroom.
So we're kind of panning around that bedroom.
Yes.
96.
Another part of the bedroom,
97,
and another part of the bedroom, the corner.
98.
Master bedroom?
So, and going back to Dylan Redwine's room, anything of evidentiary value located in that room?
No.
Now, 98, is that going to be across the hall from Dylan Redwine's room?
Yes, that little landing area.
And then as we're looking at this back wall of the master, is this Mark Redwine's bedroom?
Yes,
There's a door to the right. Is that the door that the jury saw in the staircase that goes up the south-facing side of the home?
yes,
And then there's a window as well?
yes.
I'm going to go to 99.
This is that staircase outside the master bedroom?
If you walk straight through that door, it pops out for an exit.
Yes.
People's 100.
Another shot of the master bedroom?
So it's kind of panning within the room.
Yes,
Is this going to be the side of the house that if you were to look out to the window, you look out east?
yes,
So that window we're looking at right there, that would face the road.
yes.
101, please.
Another panning of the bedroom?
102.
More of the bedroom?
103. We're panning to the right.
Yes, and you see the laundry room and the master bathroom.
Okay. 104.
And another picture of the bedroom.
105.
The laundry room,
106.
another picture of the laundry room.
A lot of typical stuff for doing laundry in there.
Yes,
A lot of those type of cleaning products, et cetera.
yes,
And then some clothing as well.
yes.
107.
Another shot of the laundry room.
So we've panned back around the other way.
Yes,
108.
and another shot of the laundry room.
109.
And the master bathroom.
And this is connected to the master bedroom.
Yes,
110.
another shot of the master bathroom
111.
and the master bathroom.
So we've turned full circle facing out now.
Yes,
112.
this is the garage.
Before we segue to the garage, anything of evidentiary value in terms of items located in the master bedroom, the laundry room, or that master bathroom?
The master bathroom, I believe you could see in the photo the boarding pass that was eventually photographed.
Okay. And then also, is it in that picture?
I believe it's what's folded on the counter.
Thank you. So that exemplifies an entry photograph, whereas the other exemplified a evidence photograph.
Yes,
And then within the bedroom itself, was there another photograph we'll see in a little while that documented something on the wall?
yes.
But in terms of physical items, anything recovered for physical evidence out of the master?
No,
I think we're on to 112. Did we do 112? Okay. So can you talk to the jury just about the layout of the garage?
so there's two garage doors. The left side garage door is down, and that's what the side you're looking at, the southern area. Fairly crowded garage.
So you've walked in the right garage door and looked left.
Yes,
And People's 113.
panning around, so that's a little bit more to the right of the picture you just saw.
And is that a ATV in the picture in 113?
The snowmobile,
No.
snow blower.
Can you go to 114?
That's an ATV. This is looking toward the back of the garage.
Okay. So have we continued to pan? Which way are we facing in relation to the doors on the garage?
It'd be like you're standing at the garage doors, looking toward the back.
Okay. So we're still panning right, basically. And then 115?
This is the right side of the garage.
116?
This is over by the water heater toward the back of the garage, and there's an opening down below.
117?
And this is the kind of the last part of the garage toward the garage, front garage door.
118?
And that's an evidence photograph.
Okay. And 119?
and another evidence photograph.
Okay. Does this appear to be an older Band-Aid?
Yes.
When you see something like this, is this collected?
It's not collected, but it was tested.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is collected so it could be tested.
Yes.
And then this photograph here is another evidence photograph.
Yes.
But is it also an entry photograph in that this is how it appeared when you arrived?
Yes.
And then
It hadn't been moved at that point at all.
Okay. So I want to back up to 116. 115. We're panning back to the left, 114. So all these areas here, are these all, again, entrance photographs to the home?
Yes.
This is how it appeared when the investigators, yourself, and others arrived for the search warrant.
Yes.
After these photographs, is this area thoroughly searched?
Yes.
And you participated in that search?
Yes.
Anything of evidentiary value found in the garage besides the evidence photo we've already seen of the Band-Aid?
No.
Were you aware at the time that there was a heavy focus on the lakes because of a missing fishing pole?
Yes.
Were you able to find a fishing pole anywhere in this garage?
No.
Were you able to find a fishing pole anywhere in the home?
No.
I'm going to move back. I think we were on 119, and then 120, please. Is this another evidence photograph?
Yes.
Hold on a second. Aaron, do you want some water or some candy or something? You all right? Okay. Go ahead.
What are we looking at in People's 120?
A Nerf football that was on the end table next to the left seat.
Okay. If we go back to 71, please. And then 72, because that sticker's in the way. 72. Do you see that same football in an entrance photo?
Yes.
And is it, can you just point for the jury? You don't need to say anything, but if you could just stand up and point to it so they can see where in the living room it is. Thank you. I'm going to go back to 120. And then you can see a slightly different positioning there, right?
Yes.
Is that what we mean by now you're doing not an entry photo, but an evidence photo?
Right.
And was this football, in fact, collected into evidence in the case?
Yes.
And was that because it had some relevance based on the defendant's statement to FBI regarding whether there had been a football thrown in that living room to potentially cause an injury?
Yes.
Have you handled that football yourself?
Yes.
Were you responsible for collecting it?
Yes.
And did you hand it over then to La Plata County Sheriff's Office to book into evidence?
Our team leader eventually did that, yes.
And finally, I'm going to move to 121. What is 121?
It's a mark on the wall in the master bedroom.
So when you say a mark on the wall, is it consistent with any items that you had recovered in the case?
In my mind, it's consistent with the Nerf football.
Just by visually looking at it?
Yes.
So, Your Honor, at this time, I'm going to move to approach with People's 122.
All right.
Ms. Russin, have you seen People's Exhibit 122 before?
Yes.
What is it?
It's a Nerf football that I collected at the house.
And that's the same football that we've seen in the photographs in the defendant's home?
Yes.
Move to admit People's Exhibit 122 into evidence, please.
Mr. Moran,
No objection, thank you.
it's admitted.
Now, Ms. Russin, have you been inside that living room for an extended period of time during the search?
Yes.
Is that a large living room or a small living room?
Small.
And are the couches fairly close together?
Yes.
And is it possible to throw a football within that living room?
Possible, yes.
How about throwing one really hard? Would that make any kind of sense?
No.
Did you find any kind of marks like this downstairs?
No.
Just upstairs?
Yes.
To your knowledge, is based on the statement given to FBI, was Dylan Redwine ever in the defendant's master bedroom?
Not that I'm aware of.
So, Your Honor, at this time, I'm going to ask to publish People's 122 to the jury so that they can pass it around.
All right, that's fine.
And-
You wanna-
And Ms. Russin, as they're doing that, this is your typical Nerf football, correct?
Yes.
So is it soft? If they were to squeeze it, they'll feel how hard this ball would or wouldn't be?
Yes.
Thank you. And so, Ms. Russin, with regard to People's 122, do you recognize the packaging on it?
Yes.
Is that consistent, your name's on the packaging as someone who collected it?
Yes.
Then is that consistent with it being packaged by FBI with the tape and the date on it?
Yes.
And then is it also consistent with it being received by the La Plata County Sheriff's Office and booked into their property and evidence because they're the local agency?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, we talked about the fishing pole and that this home was thoroughly searched and you were unable to locate a fishing pole, correct?
Correct.
Let me ask you about a couple other items. Did you ever locate a backpack in that home?
No.
Did you ever locate a cell phone in that home? I'm sorry, Dylan Redwine's cell phone in that home.
No.
Did you ever locate Dylan Redwine's iPod in that home?
No.
You ever locate Dylan Redwine's ball cap that he was seen on video wearing in that home?
No.
You ever locate any of his clothing that he had taken with him on that trip?
No.
Do you ever locate any of his personal items from that trip?
No.
Did you locate anything to show that a 13-year-old boy was staying in that house for an extended visit?
No.
I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Mr. Moran?
Good afternoon, Ms. Russin. Who searched the garage?
Multiple people. I was in there, I believe Amber Cronin was in there, Dan Lyman, so there were multiple people in the garage.
Did you observe items related to fishing in the garage?
I don't recall. I was looking for the fishing pole.
Did you observe anything that would have indicated where a fishing pole might have been, for example, a fishing lure?
I didn't see anything where a fishing pole would have been easily in that garage.
Do you recall observing a fishing lure in some sort of an unusual place in that garage?
No.
Yes.
So as the lead on this search, your duties would have taken you to various locations outside the house, upstairs, is that right?
I wasn't the lead on the search. I was a participant in looking for evidence.
I see. So each participant is assigned to different locations. Is that a fair way to understand how you do your searches?
Not necessarily. You can start in an area and move through different areas of the house. I looked through the entire house.
Was there anyone that you can inform the court was the primarily responsible for the search of the garage?
No, not off the top of my head.
Okay. And you don't remember do you remember observing that there was a net that would have gone with a fishing pole in the garage?
I can't say I saw it or didn't see it. It wouldn't be unusual to have extra fishing gear.
Sure. But because the fishing pole, as you've testified, was something that was of interest to yourself and other searchers, do you recall noting where the fishing net was?
I can't recall seeing a fishing net, but so I don't know where it would have been.
But that would have been something that perhaps would have caught a searcher's attention who is interested in finding the fishing pole.
No,
right?
we're looking for the fishing pole.
So you didn't note it. Do you know if anybody else noted having seen that fishing net?
Not that I recall.
And I've provided to you what I believe has been admitted as a prosecution exhibit. Do you recognize what here is Defendant's Exhibit 1076?
It looks like the same photo as what was it been admitted.
So this is fair and accurate representation of what you observed that day.
If it's the same photo.
It is, ma'am. It's a photograph that was taken by. How do I refer to Mr. Parsons, the photographer? He did work for the FBI, but he was not a special agent.
Correct. He was just a support personnel.
Okay.
Okay, 1076 has been stipulated to, it's admitted.
So if you wouldn't mind taking a look there at 1076 and telling me if you see the fishing lure near the ATV there.
No.
So if you look above that helmet, would you agree that that looks to be a child-sized helmet on the
it's a helmet. I don't know. Actually, I don't know that it's a helmet. It looks kind of like a ball,
okay.
but I can't tell from the thing.
So your recollection of at least your participation in the part of the search that took you to the garage, you don't recollect whether that was a child's helmet or a ball or what it was, right?
Not based on this angle, no.
And then if you look above that, you'll see a green child's toy. Do you see that? It
Yes.
looks like something riding an ATV, a toy that looks something along those lines. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then if you keep following that up, do you see that there's a fishing lure hanging from the insulation of that pipe there?
I see there's an item hanging from the insulation. I couldn't tell you what it is.
So you did not observe as part of your responsibilities and as your participation in the garage, you did not observe that fishing lure hanging from the insulation or that item.
If I did, it wouldn't have struck anything. We were looking for a fishing pole.
did you go to the west side of that garage?
I was in all parts of the garage, yes.
Did you look underneath the ATV?
Yes.
Okay. Did you instruct the photographer to take a photograph that depicted things that you looked at?
No.
Okay. But you remember specifically that you looked underneath the ATV?
Yes.
And is that recounted in any report that you ever wrote about this case?
No.
Do you recall, I'm going to switch gears here a little bit, one of the earliest interviews, I'm sorry, I should publish that. If I could publish 1067 or 1076.
76? Go ahead.
And that's what we've been talking about.
Yes.
Your Honor, permission to approach.
Yes.
I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification as Defendant's Exhibit 1000. Does this look like a zoomed in image or a zoom in on the image that's behind you, Defendant's Exhibit 1076?
And no objection, Your Honor, to the admission.
1000 is admitted.
Do you see what's hanging there from the installation in 1076? I've circled it in red.
Yes.
Permission to publish.
Yes.
And this is what you're looking at, right?
Yes.
Okay. Switching gears a little bit, do you remember speaking with a gentleman by the name of Sean Boris at United Pipeline on November 21st, 2012?
Sounds about right.
And I may have that wrong. It could have been on the...
I don't think the 21st is correct, because that would have been before Thanksgiving, and we didn't talk to anyone before Thanksgiving. I don't believe.
You're right. I've got my dates all off. It's the 26th that you spoke with Mr. Boris at United Pipeline. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you were there to talk to him about observations he'd made of Mr. Redwine on November 19th, 2012, when he was at work to get a paycheck or something of the like.
Well, we were there to talk to him about Mr. Redwine's work and why he came in that day and if he noticed anything.
You would agree that part of your training, starting as early as Quantico when you first get into the FBI, is to write reports, right?
Yes.
And it's critical to make sure you're summarizing important facts in reports. Is that fair?
We try to put in our reports the item, what the person told us.
And FBI agent, special agent reports are reviewed by assistant U.S. attorneys, federal judges. All of that fair?
I don't know what you mean by reviewed. They get copies of them, but they can't change them.
Sure. You're aware that all kinds of folks rely on the accuracy of reports of special agents and the FBI, right? Is that
Yes.
fair? And in speaking with Mr. Boris, it would have been important to discuss with him what he'd observed about Mr. Redwine when he'd seen him on November 19th, 2012, the day Dylan went missing. Is that right?
No, our main objective was to find out timing, whether there were GPSs in the trucks, if there were anything substantially in terms of Mr. Redwine's job that was important.
Also would have been important to get any observations about how Mr. Redwine appeared, if he looked disheveled, if he looked haggard. That would have been something that would have been important to note. Wouldn't you agree?
We usually ask very general questions. We don't want to lead somebody into that particular direction. We ask them if they had any observations.
Okay. And do you recall that Mr. Boris said his observation was that he did not note anything out of the ordinary about Redwine?
I don't recall that, but if it's in the report, I also don't recall if we went back and talked to him some more.
Permission to approach. I'll refresh your
Yes.
recollection. Court's permission.
Well, he noted he was tired and pale. Yes. I don't remember if myself or Joe Finaro wrote it.
Bears on it?
Yes.
So you bear some responsibility for what's written in this report?
I reviewed it. If I didn't write it, I reviewed it.
And you would agree that on line 20 here it says, Boris did not note anything out of the ordinary about Redwine? You would agree that that is what it says on this report at line 20?
That's what it
No,
says.
Oh, wait.
but-
That's not the purpose of refreshing someone's memory, Mr. Moran. So, I mean, you indicated it refreshed your memory.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
All right. So you can ask questions about that, and then maybe you can get there. Just go ahead.
Your Honor, if I may, that this is related to 613 and probably 1610-201. This is to impeach a statement made by Mr. Boris.
No,
that
I
he
understand.
claimed that he did not say this. And so it's important to establish that it is a verbatim quote here in the agent's report.
All right, go ahead.
It's
Ma'am,
not a verbatim quote.
I'm sorry, but you would agree that it is stated, quote, in this report, it states, quote, Boris did not note anything out of the ordinary about Redwine. Does it say
Without
that?
the context of the rest of the conversation, that statement doesn't make sense.
That's not the question. Does
Well,
the,
she's, you know, as I've stated before in this trial, she's required to tell the whole truth. So you can ask the question, but I'm going to let her explain it.
Your Honor, this is a very specific question.
I understand that,
Okay.
and I've just made a ruling about it, Mr. Moran.
Does your report say, quote, Boris did not note anything out of the ordinary about Redwine? Yes.
He did
or-
not quote that.
Does
our
your,
report-
ma'am,
Stop,
my
stop,
question
stop,
is,
stop, stop. You're talking over each other. Ask the question.
ma'am, listen to the question carefully. Does this report have the words in it that Boris did not note anything out of the ordinary about Redwine? Yes or no?
Yes, but it's not a
Okay,
quotation.
Hold on. It appeared, as I stated before, you can tell the whole truth if there's something that does not, you feel like that's a it doesn't give the whole thought.
Your Honor, if I may, I would request that that be something that they inquire after on redirect.
Well, Mr. Moran, I know that's what you want to do, but she's trying to tell you now. I'm going to let her tell you now. Go ahead.
So Mr. Boris noted that he was tired and I forgot what the word was, not unkempt, but he was tired. That would have been his statement about Mark Redwine's observations.
But
Going
nothing,
further,
hold on, don't go further, please. This isn't the question you wish I would have asked. This is the question that I need to direct to you. So, did Mr. Boris say anything about Mr. Redwine being haggard?
I can't remember what the word,
Okay, but that wasn't a word that made it into your report, right?
we don't do verbatim reports.
Okay. Did Mr. Boris say to you that Mr. Redwine looked like he'd been on a bender? Yes or no?
I don't recall that.
Okay. And if a witness had been telling you that somebody looked haggard and like they'd been on a bender, given your training and experience, your expertise as a crime fighter with the Federal Bureau of Investigations, that's something you would have noted in your report. Agree?
Yes.
Your Honor, this may be a good time to break.
So you're going to a different subject then?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please remember my admonitions, which I can't seem to find right now. You're not to talk to anybody about the case. You're not to do any research on your own. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else during the course of the trial. Do not initiate, post, or respond to anything about the case on social media. Keep an open mind throughout the trial and reach your decision only during your final deliberations. Again, don't talk to any third persons about it. Let me know if somebody does so over your objections. Don't gather any information on your own. No outside reading. Don't visit anywhere mentioned in this case so far. Don't read about it in the newspaper or listen to anything on the radio, television. Check out the internet or social media about it. And don't worry about the case outside of the courtroom. With that, we'll start up again at, 10 to, well, I want you guys here at 10 to 8. Hopefully we'll start at 8. And, we'll be in recess. Everybody rise to adjourn. Okay, we can be seated. And I just want to let both parties know that if they try to limit any witness consistent with my practice for the past 19 years to yes or no questions, I'm going to push back on that because witnesses are sworn to tell the whole truth, and many times that's impossible.
Your Honor, I've heard the court remark that, and I respect that. I know that that's the practice of this courtroom. And it's late enough in the day that perhaps I was not articulating as clearly as I intended to, that this is what was written. And so expounding upon that this is what is written, it would not have lent any further truth to that question in the form that it was asked. So I don't mean to quibble, but...
I understand that's your opinion. It's not my opinion, and for whatever it's worth, my opinion is the one that goes here. So, in any event, anything else before we break?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Your Honor, just to the extent there needs to be a record on this, it's important for confrontation. That's what cross-examination is intended to get after, is the Sixth Amendment protection for face-to-face confrontation here in Colorado. So that's what I'm tying it to, and thank you. I appreciate you letting me know that.
I understand what you're trying to do, Mr. Moran, but I'm going to control what you do. With that, you're free to go for the night, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Okay? Let's check here. Rosa?